They only told you half the story, that Kundalini is divine, that it's awakening, that it's bliss and cosmic union. They spoke of the serpent rising, coiling through your spine, unlocking energy centers, birthing transcendence. But they left something out. They didn't tell you what happens when the serpent awakens before you're ready. Because Kundalini is not just light, it's fire, and fire doesn't ask permission. It burns what isn't true. It sears through illusion. It doesn't elevate your ego, it dismantles it. You weren't meant to chase Kundalini, you were meant to prepare for it. But in the age of shortcuts, workshops, instant downloads, and ego-driven spirituality, people summon a force that ancient yogis spent decades preparing to receive. And when it comes too fast, it shatters. You feel anxiety you can't explain, dreams that turn violent, energy rushes that fry your nervous system, your thoughts scatter, your body shakes, your reality bends, and no one around you knows what's happening. Because no one talks about this side of awakening, the side where you don't feel enlightened, you feel erased. Kundalini doesn't care about your goals, it cares about your truth. It will dismantle everything in your life that isn't aligned. Relationships, careers, identities. It will pull the floor out from beneath your feet, not to punish you, but to rebuild you, but only if you let it. Because here's the truth, the mainstream won't say. Kundalini isn't here to make you happy. It's here to make you whole. And wholeness doesn't come from bypassing your wounds. It comes from walking straight through them. The serpent is sacred, but she is not tame. She will drag you into your darkness, not to destroy you, but to show you what you've refused to see. That is the side of Kundalini no one prepared you for. But if you're here, if you're listening, it means you're ready, not for comfort, for clarity, and that journey begins now. Before Kundalini rises, it descends into your roots, into your wounds, into the silence you've been avoiding for lifetimes. The serpent doesn't shoot up your spine into bliss. It sinks into everything you've buried, denied, hidden under masks of success, spirituality, and self-control. This is the initiation, and no one warns you. Because this part isn't marketable. It doesn't look pretty on an Instagram feed. There are no radiant auras here, no glowing eyes, only friction, only the truth pressing against everything you thought you were. You cry without knowing why. You lose your appetite. You feel the ground slip beneath identity. You sense a storm that doesn't pass. And it's not depression, it's deconstruction. Your ego starts to crack. Your stories unravel. You find yourself face to face with emotions you swore you'd transcended. Anger, shame, grief. The serpent doesn't avoid them. She feeds on them, transforms them. This is sacred combustion. And yes, it's terrifying because it feels like death. And in many ways, it is. Death of the mask, death of the lie, death of the part of you that wanted enlightenment without change. Kundalini won't let that version survive, and that's mercy. Because if you made it to this point, you're ready to stop pretending. This is why the ancients prepared, why the yogis fasted, why mantras were whispered in solitude. Not to awaken faster, but to fortify the vessel. Because the serpent doesn't just bring light, she brings intensity. And if your nervous system isn't ready, you break. Not open, but down. That's why this part is hidden, not out of conspiracy, out of caution, because power without preparation isn't awakening, it's collapse. So ask yourself, are you ready to feel what your soul has been trying to show you? Through pain, not avoidance. Because if you are, then the serpent will move, not as a teacher, but as a mirror. Your nervous system is not a passive bystander. It is the temple Kundalini moves through. And if the temple is cracked, unstable, or filled with unresolved trauma, it doesn't channel the serpent's fire. It fries under it. Most people think Kundalini is purely spiritual, but it's biological too. She lives in your spinal cord, your cerebrospinal fluid, your vagus nerve. She breathes through your endocrine system, your breath patterns, your cranial sacral rhythm. She doesn't just open chakras, she rewires your entire being. That's why the symptoms feel physical: shaking, twitching, pressure in the head, intense heat or cold, sleep disruption, spontaneous breathwork. The rise isn't just in consciousness, it's in biology. And the body doesn't lie. If you're numb, it will bring sensation. If you're ungrounded, it will force stillness. If you're in control, it will take control away. Not to punish you, to purify you. This is why you must build capacity, not just intellectually, nervously. You need to slow down your system, to breathe deeper, to move trauma, to stabilize the channels. Because the serpent doesn't work on your schedule. She arrives when you're least ready and reveals what you've most avoided. This is not chaos. This is initiation. In ancient mystery schools, before any energy was raised, the initiate spent years preparing the vessel through fasting, stillness, shadow work, movement, deep inquiry, because only a grounded body can handle an ungrounded force. We've reversed that in modern times. We seek ecstasy without structure. We chase power without preparation. We glorify the peak and ignore the path. And the price: collapse, confusion, spiritual emergency masked as awakening. But it doesn't have to be this way, because Kundalini is not the enemy. She is your oldest intelligence. She knows how to rebuild you, if you let her. So breathe, feel your body, feel the places that clench when truth approaches. That's where she begins. That's where the power hides. And if this message is resonating, if it's awakening something ancient inside you, then it's time to subscribe and tap the bell. Not for more content, for connection, to stay in this field, to deepen, to remember. The moment Kundalini stirs, everything becomes mirror. Your body reflects your history, your relationships reflect your wounds, your thoughts echo your conditioning, your environment bends to your vibration. This isn't metaphysical poetry, it's mechanism, because when the serpent moves, she does more than awaken you, she exposes you. That's why some call it a crisis, because awakening isn't euphoric at first, it's destabilizing. It pulls you inward into an emotional storm. Past traumas rise like ghosts. Unhealed memories replay. Emotional waves crash harder than ever before. Not because something's going wrong, because something's finally working. Kundalini doesn't surface pain. She reveals where it's buried. And what's buried rules you. Your reactions, your triggers, your addictions, your distractions. It's all driven by what your system has suppressed. And the serpent, she doesn't negotiate with suppression, she incinerates it. That's why people break. Not because Kundalini is dangerous, but because they resist what she shows. We live in a culture that numbs truth, that glorifies control, that pathologizes spiritual crisis. So when someone enters Kundalini activation without language or guidance, they're labeled unstable, they're medicated, shamed, ignored. But what if they're not broken? What if they're becoming whole? In ancient India, Kundalini symptoms were signs of grace, signs that the veil was thinning, that the soul was remembering. Not everyone was ready. Not everyone made it through, but those who surrendered, they emerged, not just awakened, transformed, because Kundalini doesn't give you new answers. She burns your false questions. She doesn't comfort your ego. She ends it. And in that ending, clarity. You see who you are beneath stories. You feel what is real. You stop searching and start being. But to get there, you must let go of resistance, of blame, of trying to manage the fire instead of becoming it. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped resisting your breakdown and started honoring it as your breakthrough? The serpent waits for your answer, and she doesn't move with force. She moves with permission. There's a moment every seeker dreads. It's not the pain, not the confusion. It's the disappearance of identity, of meaning, of the you you've clung to for survival. This is ego death. And when Kundalini initiates it, there's no warning. One day, your name feels foreign. Your desires feel shallow. Your goals feel scripted. Everything you built your sense of self upon begins to evaporate. And it's terrifying, because you weren't taught that this is part of the process. You were taught to chase light, not to dissolve into it. But the serpent doesn't ascend you as you are. She disassembles you, piece by piece. Your relationships start to shift. What once lit you up now drains you. The roles you played no longer fit. The masks itch until they fall off. And in their place, silence. Not peace, not clarity, just emptiness. The void between stories. This is the sacred pause when the soul rewrites itself. But in that pause, the ego panics. It tries to rebuild the old structure. It grasps for anything familiar, anything to avoid obliteration. This is where most turn back. They mistake this holy disintegration for failure. They try to fix what's being freed. But what if the emptiness isn't a problem? What if it's the portal? The portal to the true self, the one that doesn't need a name, a brand, or validation to exist, because in that silence, something ancient stirs. Not thought, not identity, essence, that part of you that has watched every version of you rise and fall, the one that knows, that remembers, that waits. This is the soul the serpent awakens, not by inspiring it, by stripping away everything that isn't it. And when you surrender to that fire, you don't lose yourself. You lose what was never you to begin with. So ask yourself, if your sense of self had to burn to reveal the truth beneath, would you let it? Because until you do, you're still playing a role. You don't awaken by finding something new. You awaken by remembering what you were before the forgetting. And that remembering begins after the burn. Once the ego collapses, once the false identities dissolve, there's a moment, quiet, barely noticeable, when something ancient returns, not as an idea, as frequency, a pulse in your chest, a clarity in your breath, a presence that doesn't speak, it radiates. This is the rebirth, not dramatic, not cinematic, simple, silent, unmistakably true. You begin to act without calculation. You speak without needing reaction. You move not from fear, but from resonance. And the serpent, who once roared through your system, is now integrated, not above you, not within you, as you. Because this was never about the rise. It was about becoming the current. The yogis called it Jivan Mukta, liberated while alive, not floating in a trance, rooted in reality with awareness as your anchor. Your nervous system no longer collapses under pressure. It channels it. Your emotions don't own you. They guide you. Desire isn't a distraction. It's data. You no longer fear the fire. You carry it. And people around you feel the shift. Not because you say more, because you radiate clearer. They notice something in your gaze, in your stillness, in your silence. It unnerves them or awakens them. Sometimes both. But you no longer adjust your light to comfort their shadows. You become the invitation, not to follow, to remember. Because once the serpent completes her cycle, she doesn't leave. She settles. She coils not in hiding, but in wholeness. This is the mystery the ancients guarded. Not that awakening is fire, that you are. So ask yourself, what would life look like if you stopped chasing healing, and started trusting that you already carry the healer within, because the only veil left now is the one you choose to keep. You don't need to speak to be felt. When Kundalini completes her dance, your presence shifts reality, subtly, unavoidably. Rooms grow quieter when you enter. Strangers linger in your energy. Opportunities appear without effort, not because you're manifesting, because you're resonating. The awakened being doesn't try to be seen. They radiate in silence. This is the real power of Kundalini, not mystical visions or psychic gifts, but coherence. Your entire system, mind, body, spirit, comes into alignment, and from that alignment, a field emerges. That field is magnetic, not because of desire, because of truth. Truth has gravity. It pulls, it polarizes, it awakens. And when you carry it unapologetically, you don't chase anything. You attract only what aligns, not because you're better, because you're clear. Your presence becomes a filter. False connections fall away. Old patterns dissolve. Only resonance remains. This is what the mystics meant by walking prayer, not reciting mantras, being the mantra. And that mantra isn't spoken, it's felt through your gaze, through your stillness, through the energy that moves through you without effort. You become a tuning fork for others. Some will avoid you, others will awaken around you, but none will forget you, because they'll remember something in themselves when they stand near you. And you no longer need approval. You no longer argue with noise. You no longer dilute to fit in. You remember, and remembering is louder than any speech. So ask yourself, what might shift if you stopped trying to be understood and started being felt without explanation? Because that's where your real voice is, not in words, in vibration. The serpent never leaves, she simply rests. Not because her work is done, because you have become her work. She no longer coils to awaken, she coils in presence. No more chaos, no more surges, just depth. A depth that doesn't need to prove itself, that doesn't seek to be seen, that doesn't chase experience. Because now, experience chases you. You're not the seeker anymore. You are the field in which all seeking dissolves. This is the true completion, not fireworks, not visions, but the soft, unwavering frequency of one who has come home. To the body, to the silence, to the soul behind the soul. This is why the serpent was feared, not because she was dangerous, because she was free. And freedom cannot be governed. It cannot be explained. It cannot be contained in language or doctrine. It can only be lived. And now, that freedom is yours, not to flaunt, to guard, not to broadcast, to embody. Because the more quietly you carry it, the more loudly it transmits. So here's what remains, now that all else has burned. The gaze that sees through masks, the breath that heals without effort, the touch that awakens memory, the stillness that shakes illusions. And in that stillness, the serpent sleeps, not in hiding, in wholeness. So ask yourself, quietly, truly, if you already carry the awakened force within, what are you still waiting for permission to become? Drop your answer in the comments, not for me, for you. Because maybe the next person who reads it will remember who they are too. And if you're ready to walk deeper into mysteries that burn, into truths no one taught you, it's time to choose the next door, the next video, because the serpent is still moving.